You're listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.
This episode,
I'll be doing some life drawing in FAB Facts.
It's the trial of a Time Lord in the Randomiser.
and it's Back to the Future with futurist Theo Priestly.
That's all coming up in Pod 129.
You see what I did there?
Yeah.
Of the Gerry Anderson podcast.
Let's get started. Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
The Gerry Anderson Podcast with Jamie Anderson and Richard James.
That was a hilarious gag you did in the
Wasn't
opening
it?
snippet
Back
there.
to the Future. You see, we're literally seconds into Pod 129, and already I've mentioned a classic sci-fi genre movie. I mean, it's good going, isn't it?
Yes, that's certainly not an alien thing on the Gerry Anderson podcast to be discussing sci-fi, is it?
No, it really isn't out of this world, is it? Oh, no, let's just start. Anyway, welcome to the Gerry Anderson podcast. I'm Richard James. You must be Jamie Anderson.
I am, and over there on the outer limits of our peripheral vision is
Yes.
Chris Dale.
Yeah, there he is, look. I can just make out his sort of silhouette through the glass there.
Yeah,
He's
do you
looking
want the
quite
binoculars?
sinister.
I'll just pass them over. Here you go.
It is Chris Dale. You're
Yes.
right, yeah. Yeah, gotcha.
Confirmed.
Thanks. Yes, and welcome to the Gerry Anderson podcast. We're here for the next, I don't know, it's usually about an hour and a half or so, give or take, of goodness. We've got some news from the Gerry Anderson universe, of course. Chris Dale will be making his way into the room to deliver us his amazing randomiser. We've got part 2 of Jamie's chat with Theo Priestly. We've got some emails and Facebookings and Twitterings from our wonderful Podsterons. And, of course, FAB Facts coming up any moment now.
Yes, which I can tell you cannot wait for that. But we are now at the end of November.
Yeah,
on the day of
true.
release. Anyway, it's 30th of November. Christmas is just around the corner, and we know for many of you, it's probably not the Christmas you were hoping for, depending on where in the world you are. So we hope we will bring you a little bit of cheer, if not Christmas cheer, maybe some Christmas cheer, over the next few weeks as we approach the end of 2020, and hopefully a brighter 2021.
Yes, wouldn't that be great? I mean, certainly Christmas cheer for at least 4 of them, Jamie, because only this week we posted off 4 Thunderbirds Christmas jumpers to our
Right.
winners of the competition in the last pod.
Yes, that was rather nice, wasn't it, to be able to do that and give some people some Christmas cheer. Who knows, maybe there's room for some more Christmas cheer this week. We'll have to wait and see.
Oh, what, you're going to give me something?
I've already offered you something and you roundly rejected it, you rude
All right.
podcaster. Anyway, shall we go into something rather fab, and that fab thing could be FAB Facts?
As long as it's a bit fab and quite facty.
It's certainly going to be different this week. Here we
Go
go.
on then.
Now, time for this week's FAB Facts.
So, Richard James, FAB Facts, as you know, I normally have a book of FAB Facts and I flick through the book and you shout FAB and then I read a FAB Fact from that page.
Yeah, pretty much.
But I'm changing things up.
What?
Oh, yes.
You can't do that to me.
No, I can,
What?
I think you'll find.
Are you messing with the format?
I am messing with the format.
Oh,
There's still something page flicky about it.
right.
I have a random novel from my shelf here,
Oh,
and I'm going to flick through it, and you're going to shout FAB, which will stop me at a random page. Are you ready?
okay. Yes, I suppose so.
Okay, here we go.
Fab.
Great. Page 37 we're on.
Of a novel. All
Yes.
right, yeah.
And now I'm going to move my finger slowly up and down the page, and you're going to shout FAB, and I'll stop moving my finger.
This is very complex.
Are you ready?
Fab.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's
how's
great.
that?
That's great.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so there are 9 words on this line.
Yes.
Choose a number between 1 and 9.
Number 7.
The wardrobe.
What? Right. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So now the challenge is I have to come up with a FAB fact connected to the word wardrobe.
Now this I like.
Okay. So the FAB fact this week about something wardrobe-y
Yeah.
comes directly from my own home life growing up with Dad.
Oh, good. Yeah.
So, in his office before we moved house when I was about 10, he had a few puppets sat around, but the two that he kept hold of were an original studio-used Parker, or parts of it were Parker, although it was at one point glued into place. All of his joints were frozen and he just stood perfectly still.
Oh,
and
right.
a Lady Penelope replica made by Christine Glanville. And I guess around 93-ish, maybe slightly earlier, Richard and Christine strung those puppets so they were fully working again, and they were used for a couple of promotional bits and pieces, and they were actual working puppets. Now, when we moved house, his garden office was not completed, so there was nowhere to put these puppets. So rather than have them on display somewhere around the house, he put them both in bin bags
Right.
and hung them in my bedroom wardrobe.
Okay.
And there they remained in their black bags for, I think, about 4 years.
Oh,
So
right.
every time I went to get a shirt or a jumper or whatever that was hanging up in the wardrobe,
Yeah.
on the left-hand side, slightly spookily, were these two Supermarination puppets, which I never really played with. I mean, it was sort of on pain of death if I touched them,
Yes,
even
I'm
though
sure.
they were in my wardrobe.
Would have been even spookier if they'd actually handed you the shirt you wanted.
That's a great image, isn't it? Open the door and out comes a
Yes.
shirt. No, not that one, actually. But sadly, he decided to sell them at auction in the, I guess, the late 90s, probably mid-late 90s. Someone listening will know when his Penelope and Parker went up for auction. And that was that. So we
Gosh.
were left with no puppets at all. And they were really the only things that he kept for a long time. They were the sort of the most nostalgic bits of his entire collection, if ever there was
Amazing.
one. So
Yeah.
there you go. How's that for pulling a fact out of the wardrobe?
That's pretty good. That is pretty good. I mean, do you feel that you missed out? Because, everyone would imagine growing up in a house with Gerry Anderson, there would be plenty of Gerry Anderson stuff to play with. Do you feel a bit aggrieved that you never really got your hands on any of those props or toys that he might have had lying about? If he was a different sort of person?
I was too
Really?
busy playing with me Doctor Who stuff.
Yeah, of course you were. Of course you were.
No,
Yeah.
there's absolutely no sense of feeling aggrieved because I spent so much time at the studios and seeing
Yes.
and doing cool stuff that
Yes.
obviously nobody else was lucky enough to do. So
Yeah.
I think I'd be a terribly ungrateful little git, even worse than Joe 90, if I were to say I felt aggrieved in the slightest.
Because famously your dad was completely unsentimental about his work and didn't really collect anything or keep much at all. I know you're discovering even now, little ideas and treatments for various projects, but as you say, you didn't really have the things hanging about the house,
No,
apart
but-
from in the wardrobe.
Even those had often been discarded, and I'm getting copies from other
Yes.
people.
Right,
So,
yeah.
kept virtually nothing. So it's amazing that Penny and Parker spent any time in my wardrobe at all.
And you're, if I might say, the
Careful.
complete opposite. You love to keep stuff, don't you? I mean, I've seen your office.
Yes, I'm a disgusting hoarder, but that often happens, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
you get sort of brought up in a particular way where there's a restriction, or you can't keep this, you can't do that, and then it kind of, when you get to be an adult in inverted commas,
Well,
then you do the opposite.
Yeah, that's true. I always like to keep at least one thing from a project I'm involved in, whether that might be a call sheet from a day's work, or a little prop, or a bit of costume, as we know from Space Precinct. Anything really, just to remind me of the fact that I actually did it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, your costume shirt lives in the wardrobe, and your
Yes.
multicom lives on the loo, doesn't it?
Indeed, it does. Yes, and unless I'm very careful, it lives in the loo as well. But we won't go into that.
Let's not. In fact, that probably brings us rather soggily to the end of this week's
Wardrobe fact. Now, I think that's got to be a first, a wardrobe fact, and I doubt we'll have another one.
Well, let's hope not. I mean, if we do the same thing again, I'll choose the
I like
same
it.
novel, but then you should
Right.
definitely flick away from...
The word wardrobe.
Yeah, and also let me get further into the book next time.
Oh, how interesting. No, I like that a lot.
Change of format. Whew.
Now, Yes, no, it's good. Just before we head on over to see what our Podsterons have been up to on their Facebook group, just a very quick reminder to our lovely listeners at home that if they feel of a mind, that they can subscribe to us on whichever platform they're listening to us on. And if they really feel up to it, they can leave us a nice review and a rating and let us and the rest of the world know what they think of the Gerry Anderson podcast. And also, if they're feeling very generous, they can copy a link, paste it to their social media profiles, and they can tell the whole world to join in and listen to the podcast as well.
That sounds like
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
a marvellous idea. One of the best, in fact.
Well, thank you very much. It's not like I just came up with it. I've been saying it for the last 128 pods. But anyway, let's head on over. We're going over to Facebook now. To our Podsteron Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Podsterons, where they've been having all the usual sort of fun. There are gift games going on, and people are sharing their art. Also, Willow is, of course, sharing her isolation diary. And also, I see that Alex Pass has been having a bit of a Space Precinct audio binge recently, listening to the audiobook versions of Demeter City and Space Precinct Revisited. It's good, isn't it? Anyway, I have a few posts here. For example, Jenny Davies says, best start to the morning ever. Me and my mum were just chatting while she was busy baking. And she said she remembered yesterday when she was driving to Tesco, she had Classic FM on the radio. And someone requested the Thunderbirds theme as a way to cheer everyone up. And I was like, what? Seriously? And she said, yes. And so I got on the catch-up service of Classic FM to try and find it, and after a few minutes of going back and forth and trying to figure out what time it was played, I eventually found it and literally jumped for joy multiple times while spinning around because I was so excited. I'm extremely happy to have heard it on a cold day. It's nice, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of course, we had the pleasure of hearing it performed live at the Royal Albert Hall, didn't we, last year, Jamie? Which was amazing.
Which is available on YouTube, so you can join in too, and lots of comments on that particular video. People saying it brought a tear to their eye, which is rather lovely.
Yeah, absolutely. Hugh Morn wrote, whenever I finish listening to a new episode of the Gerry Anderson podcast, I've been filling in the void by listening to older podcasts. In my case, it's Anything and Everything before Pod 51, as that was where I first jumped in. It's interesting hearing the podcast grow and develop across the different pods, starting with its inception via the introductory prequel and the variation of interview formats. The most recent of the older pods I've listened to at the time of writing this post was Pod 8. Oof. Now, who do you think was our special guest in Pod 8, Jamie?
Was it David Graham?
No.
No, he was 7. Close, he was 7, wasn't he?
Okay, so the week later, I'll give you a clue. It was one of mine.
Lizo.
It was Lizo Mazimba, that's right.
Nice.
Hugh says, as somebody who watched him on Newsround as a child years ago, I love the enthusiasm he expressed for science fiction and Anderson productions. Nick Cave, on a similar vein, said, I started listening in September this year and I'm up to Pod 107. I don't know what I'll do when I catch up and I have to wait a whole week for the next one. We might have to go over to the dark side and listen to the Benji and Nick show. But then he had a much better suggestion from Nick Cave. He says maybe Richard James could do a Space Precinct podcast. I don't know if anyone know that he was in it because he doesn't like to talk about it much. Yes, thank you very much, Nick. Space Precinct podcast could happen.
I think you could probably write some lyrics to the theme.
Now there's a competition for our wonderful Podsterons.
Yeah.
We've had someone play it on a kazoo.
Yeah.
We've had someone do a sort of a disco version. So let's hear some lyrics to the Space Precinct theme, pop them in a WAV, a WAV, or an MP3 file, email them to podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk, and we'll play out the best as soon as we hear it.
Be creative, I think. Yeah, yes. Don't just go for, this is the Space Precinct podcast, hosted by the Richard James. I can't think of any more, but yeah, that.
No, that's
not
good.
that.
I like
better
it.
than that.
That's great. And finally, for now, we've had an email from Dean Harrison, who says, chaps, I was already considering sending this email before listening to Pod 127, but then as Jamie specifically asked for it, I thought I'd better got in touch to say, as you could probably guess from the email title, which I haven't written down, unfortunately, he says, but he gets to the nub fairly quickly. He says, I've always hated Terrorhawks. It always occupied that place in my heart that Jamie reserves for Joe 90 and Chris reserves for Torchy. Being brought up on Thunderbirds and Captain Scarlet before moving on to UFO and Space 1999, I had big hopes when Terrorhawks came along, until I watched it and couldn't believe what utter beep, his words, not mine, it was, total and utter beep, an absolute beep show. As you may have guessed, I couldn't stand it. But then a short while ago, Big Finish did a really good sale on Terrorhawks. As many years have passed since I first watched it, and Jamie, after all, loved it, I wondered whether I'd misremembered it and thought, how bad can it be? So I bought all 3 series of Terrorhawks from Big Finish, and then 2 weeks ago I decided it was time to give them a try, headphones on, whilst working in the garden. The first episode started and I thought, oh my god, it was just as beep beep as I remembered. But as it was the intro episode, I thought I'd try another, then another, and another. It was a bit like when you're passing a crash on the motorway. You know you shouldn't look, but you just can't stop yourself. To the point where Series 1 finished and Series 2 went straight on. By the time I got to the end of Series 2, I thought, oh no, they're doing a Blake 7, and it genuinely worried me. What a cruel cliffhanger for my newfound enthusiasm. Fortunately, I had Series 3, so the concern didn't last long, and by the time I got to the end, I think I could safely say I am now a Terrorhawks fan.
Yes!
Job done,
Great.
Jamie.
Well, that makes all 3 series worthwhile just for that one conversion, and I'm pretty serious when I say that.
That's exactly right. So thank you, Dean Harrison. Thanks for getting in touch. We don't mind it when people don't like something from the Gerry Anderson universe, because there's plenty out there, but we do love it when someone thinks they don't like something. Eh? And then they get to know it a bit.
Yeah, then it's a nice surprise for them.
That's right. We like that. So, yeah, there you go. So do pop over to our Facebook group and join in the fun there, or email us at podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. I'll be reading out a few more emails and a few more tweets a little later on.
I look forward to it.
Yeah, good.
Well then, Richard James, to me, it feels like it might be time.
Yes?
For the Gerry Anderson news.
Hallelujah.
Go on, Richard. What is it? It's the Gerry Anderson...
News. News.
Well, you see, you went on a bit there because actually we're quite light on news. So do you want to do
Well, that's why I went on a bit.
a short... Okay, to make up for it. Right, yeah. Padding for the news.
Exactly.
Right, well, here is the first of a small number of news items. Today, Richard, the 30th of November, the day of release, if you're listening on the day of release. If you're not, then please disregard this message. But it's the final day of our Black Friday week sale. It's Cyber Monday, that's the technical name for what's going on today. So if you want to pick up some sort of lovely bargain from the Gerry Anderson store, then I recommend you do it today. Otherwise you'll miss out. There's some lovely deals, flash sales. I think Tim on the store was looking at doing a Mug Madness Monday. If you want to stock up your tea mug cupboard or your coffee mug cupboard. Anyway, pop along, gerryanderson.co.uk or shop.gerryanderson.co.uk, I should say. And there's Black Friday links at the top there. And I hope you find something rather marvellous. Today, the 30th, is also, Richard, the day that a lot of Gerry Anderson goodies are being auctioned by Eubanks.
Oh, yes.
I believe the auction starts this morning, so if you're listening to this in the first couple of hours after release, then you may be able to have a look and chuck in some bids if you want. But they've got everything from a prop crate that was used in the Lieutenant adverts in the 1980s, through to Terrorhawks print film reels, cutting copies, through to some puppets from Terrorhawks, the Battlehawk hero model, and even a Captain Ochre puppet head from Captain Scarlet.
Right.
So a load of lovely stuff in there.
Yeah.
We will be bidding on a couple of items there for the Anderson archive as well. We'll let you know if we get them, and if I don't, I should be rather upset. Let's see, because there's a couple of interesting things that we'd like to make accessible to more fans, basically.
Great.
So fingers crossed that does well. I'm sure it will. And thank you to Alistair and co at Eubanks for keeping us informed and for doing such a nice job of presenting all the stuff. It's rather exciting. And finally, Richard, for this one, I know you're the sort of person who puts their Christmas tree up on the 3rd of April. I mean, sorry, what was it? When did you put it up?
Well, this year, it's been up, sort of first week in November we put it up, actually. Because, everything's a bit different, isn't it, this year? So why not?
I mean, you did have a special Christmas-inspired event in the middle of the year as well, didn't you? Coronimus.
We had Coronimus, that's right.
Yes, which was interesting. But, so you're clearly feeling Christmassy. And lots of people now, as we get into December, start feeling Christmassy too. So may I recommend, to get into the Anderson Christmas spirit, that you pop along to the Gerry Anderson YouTube channel, youtube.com/GerryAndersonTV, where you can find 2 rather Christmassy things.
Ooh.
The 12 Days of Anderson Christmas, which is a sing-along video.
Right.
which is great fun. I shall say no more. Maybe we could.
Okay.
Maybe you and I could sing it in a future episode. And there's also our top 5 Gerry Anderson Christmas episodes list on there too.
Of
so
course.
that might get you in the mood in a very Anderson-y way.
Brilliant.
I'm sure there's some other stuff that I've forgotten, but as we get into December, there's less and less stuff to talk about because everything starts to wind down a bit.
You say that. I mean, I've got a couple of things for you, Jamie.
Oh, what? Really?
Well, yeah. Now listen. So,
Go on then.
On the day of release, so today, Monday, 30th of November, the Podsterons on their Facebook group are actually having an auction of their own.
Oh, lovely.
Lots of people, and I have too, have donated various bits and pieces of mainly Anderson memorabilia and merch and so on, and they're raising funds for Friends of Mason Montague Society, who are, in turn, raising money for meningitis research. So, I think it's going to be quite early, so if you're listening to this podcast early on Monday morning, head on over to the Facebook group and you can send in your silent auction bids to Willow, I think, who will give you the email address, and you can bid on various things from, there's jigsaws and there's a breakfast tray. I've got a little Space Precinct mini bundle of a picture and a slow-mo toy and a copy of Demeter City. People have donated their artwork, they've donated all sorts of memorabilia and merchandise, so do have a look at that and see if there's anything you fancy. And lastly, Jamie, now it is coming towards the end, and one of the year, rather, not the whole thing, but one thing we do like to do, is to look back on the year when we get to Christmas and New Year. Yeah. So, can you give me now, Jamie, a deadline for me to have completed a little 20-minute or half an hour look back at the news and exciting adventures that we got up to on the Gerry Anderson podcast over the last 12 months.
Oh,
when should I have
lovely.
that ready for you to deliver?
Well, I'd love for us to have that in our pre-Christmas episode. So the 14th of December, do you think? Or do you want to do the 21st?
Yeah.
Or do you want to do it for the end of the year?
What do you think?
We could do it for the 28th of December. That would be nice.
All right. Okay. Yeah. That gives you plenty of time. So
Okay.
I'm going to trawl back through all our various interviews and all the news items that happened this year, all the First Action Bureau and Planet of Bones and Terrorhawk's reboot and all this stuff, and see exactly when it happened in which month of the year.
Oh, lovely.
Be nice, wouldn't it?
Can't wait. Thank you for doing
Yeah.
that. Bless
That's
you.
all right.
Well, that's a great way to reach a crescendo and round off this week's Gerry Anderson News.
That was the news. Christmassy news.
And it's only going to get Christmassier.
Yeah, it is. And don't we have a version of the theme tune with Christmas bells over the top, I seem to remember? Is that right?
Oh, I'd forgotten about that.
Yes,
Yeah, we
I'm
won't have that
sure.
this week. It's too soon.
No, I'm just
for
saying.
December episodes,
Yeah.
we'll employ the Christmas mix of the theme tune. Can't wait.
Yeah, it'd be fun. No, that's right. Now, back to some emails, because people have been getting in touch at podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. For example, Ashley Bell in Manchester.
Hello,
got in
Ashley
touch to say, yeah, hi, Jamie and Richard. He says, how are you?
Very good, thank you.
Oh, good. I'd just like to say I've been enjoying First Action Bureau. It's kept me hooked for the last 8 weeks.
Great.
He then goes on to say, I had a fab idea the other day. I came up with this. How about a Captain Scarlet alarm clock? 1, in the daytime, you will hear the Angels pilots taking off from Cloudbase with all the different sayings from the show. And 2, when it gets to the evening, you'll have cars or big transporters going off the road, or oil rigs blowing up, and big jets dropping out the sky and crashing into buildings. That means then for you to look at your Captain Scarlet alarm clock to see what time it is. Fab idea, Jamie, or not? From Ashley Bell. I love that.
It reminds me that Dad had for years a birdsong clock, which had a different
yes.
bird for each hour and would play that bird's bird song.
Oh,
And eventually it annoyed him so much that he asked me to look into which of the batteries in the back of it you had to pull out to stop the sound working. I can imagine that being similar with this. Real novelty the first few days of hearing, on the hour Captain Scarlet sound effects, but after a few days...
I know. I had a Star Trek Next Generation Enterprise D alarm clock. The saucer would come off. That was how you'd stop the alarm. You'd take the saucer section off. And the alarm was a voice sounded a bit like Worf saying, "Wake up, the Enterprise is under attack." And of course, I would wake up in an absolute cold sweat thinking someone had broken into my room to tell me that the Enterprise was under attack. So
I
maybe Ashley will...
totally sympathise. I had a Thunderbird 2 one that was very similar. It was on the ramp. And to stop the alarm going, you'd have to lift it off the ramp. But the noise on the soundboard on it was so distorted and horrendous that it was you'd wake up. I'd get the same rush of adrenaline as I do when we do Quickfire 5.
Oh, yeah.
And then have to lift it off and just please stop that horrible noise.
All right, you talk about that rush of adrenaline.
Oh,
you mentioned Quickfire 5.
What? No, please.
So, Jamie.
No.
There'll be one next week. Now, Mark Simpson-Wedge has got in touch to say, hello, gentlemen of Podsterons. I have some ideas for some new merch.
Great.
Several pods ago, I suggested that we could have pin badges of the hero organisation logos. We already have International Rescue and Shadow. Maybe we could also have the Wasp, Moonbase, Alpha, 88th Precinct, and both versions of the Spectrum logos. Another idea would be to have a game we could play. It would help to pass the time if we ever have another lockdown. The game could be a board game, an app, or something based on one of Richard's games, like Fab or Fib, Plot of Peril, remember that? Or Blankety Blank. I also have an idea for a new YouTube video. You could do the top 10 guest stars that make an appearance in the live action shows. For example, Space 1999 had stars like Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing. Space Precinct had Danny Webb and Francis Barber. And I think there's an episode of The Protectors that has Doctor Who star Lala Ward in it. Hope these ideas are useful. Take care. And that's from Mark.
Well, Mark.
Yeah. Nice ones there, I think.
I can give you an exclusive bit of information that there will be a hero organisation badge set in 2021. How's that?
Ah, lovely.
We're also investigating a game type thing. I shall say no more, but we should be able to talk about that early in the new year if it's going to go ahead. So lots of exciting stuff, and there's 2 boxes ticked for you, Mark. So I hope you are happy about those things.
Great, but the best idea for any merch, I think, came from Hannah, who said, I know this would be difficult to do, but it's just a bit of fun. How about a collection of Christmas-themed Anderson episodes? Or what about a Thunderbird onesie?
Thunderbird onesie. Nice. Well,
that's got to happen.
Yeah,
isn't that nice?
Yes, that is great. I mean, does that mean a Thunderbird's
twosie? A
Thunderbird's onesie?
And then a Thunderbird's twosie.
And a Thunderbird 3Z, 4Z, 5Z, and a Fab onesie.
Yeah. That could happen. I like that. Thanks, Hannah.
Great,
that's very
Hannah.
good. Anyway, if you have any other ideas for any merch that you would like to see, do let us know. podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk.
Please do. That would be great. Don't forget to put in the subject line Fab Idea or Fab Ideas so we can more easily find your suggestions. Thank you very much in advance. What a lovely crop of emails this week. I mean, they're always lovely, but particularly lovely this week. I'm saying lovely again, Richard.
Stop it.
Gosh, do you know what
You've been told about that.
Is lovely.
Well, go on then.
The fact that
you'll make me blush.
Oh, yeah, the fact that we've got such an amazing host in Richard James.
That's very kind.
Oh, it's nicely saved, wasn't it? No, it's also the fact that we can get so many fantastic guests to come on and have a chat on the podcast. We've got people who worked on the shows, we've got celebrity fans, we've got scientists, we've got entrepreneurs, we've got journalists, and we've got a futurist.
Yeah.
You probably heard Theo Priestly last week talking about all things futurism related and Anderson related and things that have come true and things that were poor predictions. Well, he's back to have more of a chat, to look to the future, tell us what there is to look forward to and why the world's not all bad right now. So let's hand over to the future with Theo Priestly. I want to delve into what elements of Anderson are closest to coming to fruition, and we'll drop back into that in a second. But before we move to that, the sort of speculative stuff, Terrorhawks is the thing that's brought us together. You must have been 11, 12 when you saw Terrorhawks, 10, 11, 12, something like that for the first time. I mean, Terrorhawks is quite divisive amongst Anderson fans. There are those who grew up in the 60s and the early 70s who got the full dose of Supermarination and Space 1999 and UFO, particularly around the Supermarination series. When they heard there was a new Anderson thing, they were expecting, Captain Scarlet meets Thunderbirds +++. And the Terrorhawks is pretty different. So what was your childhood perception of Terrorhawks? And were you terrified of Zelda?
Oh, Zelda and her, again, this is like 30 odd years ago, so my memory is probably not as good as it should be. But, Zelda was a really ugly puppet.
She was meant to be fair, so she succeeded.
And then, was it her siblings or,
even that's up for discussion. So Sistar was the one with the wig, but whether it's Zelda's sister, Zelda's daughter, or whatever, who really knows? But yeah, Sistar, the slipping wig, and Young Star was the one with the gurgly voice.
Yeah. I mean, I'd always remember the wig falling off was another sort of a standout memory kind of sort of thing. And then, now I'm pretty sure, and I can't remember the guy's name, which is really terrible, but he was a sergeant major in 8.5 Hot Mum.
Yeah,
was
Windsor
he
Davis.
the voice of... Yes.
Yeah.
So that was, again, that's another very standout sort of memory. And I think it's very, I gravitate towards the specifics like voices or actors or things like that pin me to, particular memories. But I remember them for the Zeroids or him for the Zeroids. And again, it was set in space. I don't think for me the transition from puppets to different style of puppetry really bothered me at all. It was just another series to just fall into, to set your clock as a child and say, right, at this time it's going to be on and I'm going to watch it, kind of sort of thing. I'm pretty sure it was was it not at the weekends? It was
probably
a Saturday show.
Saturday or Sunday afternoon, maybe.
Yeah. I would make a point in actually watching it as well. So that in itself, again, the whole appeal of science fiction, of just enjoying someone else's creative work. I mean, to me, and I have a real appreciation for practical special effects and things like that. So Ray Harryhausen, for example, all his work using sort of plasticine models and things like that. And then, one of my favorite science fiction films, horrors, is The Thing. Because of Rob Botton's work is just phenomenal. Yeah. And then when you look at modern day stuff, you just think it just has no visceral impact for me just watching CGI, because that nobody was doused in goo or anything else like that. That kind of thing. So I have a real appreciation for the creative passion that goes and the creative work that goes into these kind of shows. Yeah. And to me, Terrahawks was just another one of those shows that somebody sat down and literally created every single puppet, knew how they wanted them to react and to move. So obviously that went into the work that they did. Even the sort of Zeroids, they were sitting in the spaceship, and then they knew that you could actually roll about on a surface somewhere as well. So again, the whole thought process into character development and creation is completely different, and you have to appreciate that, I think.
Oh yeah, I mean, a huge amount of work, and some very clever people who worked on that show have gone on to do fantastic things, like Steve Begg, who did all the special effects, who ended up going on to the Bond stuff, following the footsteps of the previous generations of effects artists like Derek Meddings and Brian Johnson. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad you could detect that even as a wee kiddie. So having gone through those shows, Theo, we've touched on Space 1999. Going to the moon, having an active moon base with 311 or however many it was personnel. We've touched on going to Mars. In Terrahawks, there was a Mars base. NASA had a Mars base, and that was supposed to be set this year in 2020. So clearly we've missed the date a little bit there.
Yeah.
So in terms of our next steps out into the stars and how soon we're going to be looking at a Space 1999 scenario, or missions to Mars, like in Captain Scarlet, hopefully not discovering the Mysterons, and certainly not starting a war if we do that, please. And going on to having a base on Mars. Have you got sort of a view over likely timelines based on how things are going now? I know NASA are talking about getting to Mars for 2030 or something like that for boots on the ground. What's your view? Are those kind of space aspects of Gerry Anderson coming true?
Yeah, so I mean, it's very interesting to see corporations. So space has now opened up to when Gerry Anderson had his vision, and it's no longer just NASA or country-specific space organizations. We have corporations. So Amazon with Blue Origin, for example. You've got Tesla with SpaceX, and Virgin to some extent who want to do space holidays and things like that. And we've got other large Japanese corporations who want to build a space hotel. Whether that'll come about, is anyone's guess. But, there's a definite space race on now, and it's being fueled by, capitalist organizations rather than space-based or governmental organizations. And, Amazon, I think, is very much focused on the moon, and we have SpaceX very much focused on Mars. And I think NASA obviously sits in between to sort of help achieve those kind of goals. I think time frame wise, I think, within the next 50 years, we might see some kind of habitat. We might see it on the moon first because it's closest. Yeah. And the moon might be this kind of sort of test bed where we have, a minimum, skeleton crew of people who have erected habitat, and they stay there, and then they make quick trips back to the space station, and ISS could be the stepping off point where they do crew transition. I think Mars is a different proposition because of the length of time it takes to, and I think the difficulty. Space is difficult. This is the thing. It's not easy like we portray in science fiction and people whizzing around and stuff really easily. And it takes time. So a Mars trip is 2-3 years or something, not a couple of weeks at impulse drive, full impulse power, for example. So the time needed to establish a physical Mars base pushes that timeline out even further. We might get our first astronaut on Mars by 2030, physically boots on the ground, collect a sample, and then spend another 3 years coming back. But the reality of actually establishing something else, I'm very much, it's a lot further down the line, and I'm very much of the mind that, if you look at Pioneer and if you look at Voyager space probes, I'm very much a firm believer that the robotic side of things will explore the solar system far beyond or far before humans will. Yeah. So the chances are we'll be sending robots, or certainly larger, more self-sustaining automation or automatons or probes or whatever to help erect these kind of shelters or things like that further in advance before we even get the chance to. So, we might see a robotic mission to Mars to help establish a base 10 years before the next human decides to go across and actually live there for a certain amount of time. Because you have to make sure that the environments are all set up, that it's all airtight, that it can all work, kind of sort of thing. So, from a risk mitigation point of view, you have to start taking those kind of sort of things into consideration. It's much easier to lose a robot than it is to lose an astronaut. So
we're probably looking kind of like, 80, 90, 100-year timeline before you've got humans spending any amount of time there, spending a significant amount of time.
Yeah. I mean, you have to look at the costs. You have to look at where we are right now. It's 2020. We're sitting under a massive economic depression thanks to a pandemic. Who's to say that in another 50 years we'll face the same kind of thing again, where we're up against some other sort of unpredictable force that causes us to retreat again, economically or financially, and sort of scale back some of those goals. So I would probably say, 50, 100 years is a good timeline to sort of consider going further out from the moon, certainly.
Those pressures, like a pandemic or similar, do they not feed into Elon Musk's probability thing that, once we're on 2 lumps of rock, whether that be here in the moon or here in Mars or all 3, then our kind of extinction probability drops. Do you think that comes into play, or is it too much about the money side of things?
Yeah, I mean, there's I'd be very wary about putting all my eggs into one basket that belongs to a billionaire. I mean, I've seen, what was that, when Worlds Collide or whatever, and that one where literally you have Elon Musk in a wheelchair bankrolling the spaceship and then expecting a seat on the spaceship just because he bankrolled it. And obviously that's the only spaceship that actually leaves Earth to the new planet, I can't remember even what it was called. But yeah, he's obviously fueled by a need to, in his mind, extend the species beyond the stars. And obviously that's our ultimate goal, is to go to the stars. I think where his vision falls down is, one, his ability to actually execute to a certain extent. So he's done a lot of little projects on Earth, like Hyperloop and the Boring Company, and he's made grand gestures, and they haven't come to fruition at all. He's certainly helped with SpaceX accelerate some of the getting objects into space, getting things to the ISS. But we seem to be carried along with that momentum, thinking, everything is going to happen tomorrow. It's going to be great. We're going to be living on the moon. We're going to have massive moon bases and things. these things have got massive timelines, like beyond our lifetime. So like I said, years just to get a small base on the moon or Mars, another 100, 200 years before that base starts to grow to a habitable community, for example. And then is that community self-sustaining? Can it grow things? Can it be organic enough to live there? Or is it forever going to expect supplies? And then what does that supply run look like? So the expanse is certainly one that highlights to me just how dangerous it is and how cut off-world can be. And then you obviously have a societal and civilization impact where you have the Mars and the Belters over there who are treated as second-class citizens, and it's almost like indentured servitude. So do we have this interplanetary sort of class system to think about in 200 to 300 years' time as well? So, that's when you start getting into the dark and dystopian side of things again.
Yeah. And I guess the further out you're looking, the more extreme that can be, because there's the further out, the more unknowns. I mean, this to me points out why science fiction is so important, because you say people have got this thing that it's coming very soon, but actually it's a long way out. But humans are really rubbish at doing stuff for something that is a long way out, particularly when you're saying it's beyond your lifetime. So I think science fiction's got a really powerful role to play. There was a NASA project that I was involved with the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy a few years ago, which was mothballed by someone in the White House now, to try to get creatives and scientists together to create a single vision, a single timeline for our kind of mankind's journey out into the stars, whether that be over 100, 200 years, 1,000 years, so that we'd all be kind of feeding into a positive future vision. Does science fiction still have the power to drive people towards something positive and utopian, or has it become now a bit more disposable, a bit more sort of entertainment, chuck it away? Because we meet people from NASA, for example, who are only at NASA because they watch Space 1999. So has science fiction still got that power, and can it do us some good in the long term?
Oh, absolutely. I think so. You have people, like you say, you have people in NASA who are there because they watch science fiction shows, and that just sat in their nature and it made them think and wonder. And I think the more people that we expose, even at a younger age, to those kind of sort of science fiction concepts, the younger people start to imagine what life can be like. And I think science fiction is a great way of saying, of pointing out, well, look, we can paint a utopian future, or we can paint a dystopian future, and it's up to us to imagine the best path to achieve one of them. And, whether it's, an apocalyptic view that's being painted in a particular show or a particular movie, we can look at those lessons and say, I don't like that. So what am I going to do to basically make sure that it never happens? So that's where science fiction is really useful, not only just the art of the possible, but using that sort of, what's the art of the possible, but it went wrong. So, let's make sure it doesn't fall down that path. And I think that's where science fiction is really powerful.
It's really interesting, because my tendency is to lean towards dystopian being a bit like, I mean, I enjoy dystopian science fiction, but I tend not to think of it as having the power. But I completely agree with you, actually. It does have power to make you think, I don't really want that. I want something a bit better. Although that does make you question, how we've got to where we are right now in the face of that. So how do you answer that, Theo?
We gave all the wrong power. Well, we gave the power to all the wrong people. So there you go.
Okay, fine. We better leave that particularly. Let's bring it back slightly to something terrestrial, but still Anderson related. And since you mentioned Joe 90 earlier on, I'm not a big fan of Joe 90, but I do think the kind of brain pattern, brain transfer, thought transfer thing, and that matrix idea of being able to learn something super quick is great. Where are we, do you think, going in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years with kind of augmenting humans, understanding the brain, using data in a way that can enhance us? Is that something which is really sort of disconnected from where we are now, and it's so complicated, and we're learning so much more about the brain and going, this is too hard, that it's never going to happen? Or is a Joe 90 something which we might see leanings towards in the next half century?
you've got two converging kind of sort of technologies in Joe 90 in a sense. So you've got you've got the glasses, which are obviously, where we are right now is we're all still, there's lots of companies still trying to get us to believe that there's an augmented reality future by wearing glasses. And then a couple of months back, Elon Musk launched his Neuralink, which is the brain interface, on a chip. And he believes that obviously that is a way to either augment intelligence beyond what an artificial intelligence could be. So giving boosting, humans beyond that, or giving them a capability of the, at the same level as AI, or just helping people with debilitating conditions like Alzheimer's and things like that, and giving them a quality of life back. I think we're at the very early stages and fringes of those converging technologies, which Joe 90 had. I think the thing that you point out is that we still don't understand the brain at all. The brain is forever will be one of these mysteries, because it is just this thing that we have. It's a blob with a lot of chemical reactions going on, neurons firing and things. We don't know how to read it. So how do we know how to implant a memory, for example, or implant a skill? And the thing is, as well, is that skills are very physical based as well. So, flying a helicopter, for example, is a very physically demanding exercise, which involves a lot of coordination of various different instruments and things like that. And that's a lot of information to take in if you were going to just download it into your brain, because then all of a sudden you're now trying to rely on the fact that your brain knows to coordinate your hands in the right way, to look at specific gauges. So it becomes more than just data. It also becomes like muscle memory and everything else like that. How do you download that to a brain, which is more than just data? Because you're looking at, it's physical memory, it's muscle memory. My arms and my legs need to understand that the input requires a certain action, and it can't be too much on the joystick or things like that. So it's not just simple binary input that I need to learn a new skill. Same with I know Kung Fu in the Matrix. Kung Fu, but actually executing the moves in a fluid manner, and then understanding that person is doing this, so I need to do that kind of block, is completely different from just a stream of data consciousness. So we're a long way off, I think.
We were having this discussion the other day. There's a Joe 90 episode called International Concerto, where he takes on the brain pattern of a concert pianist, right, in order to take it over in a performance, so the pianist can escape. And it's exactly that. You know what the notes mean, and your brain knows how to fire the signals at the right time. But unless you've got the flexibility, the dexterity, and the muscle tone in forearms and stuff, then it's not going to happen. But I still like the idea that this kind of Neuralink thing could be there to, augment what we can do, fill in the gaps of stuff that we can't. Because I guess at the end of the day, a neuron firing, it's either 0 or 1, really. At the end, so
that's true.
So there is a degree to which you can boil it down to zeros and ones. It's much more complicated. We're not going to get into neurophysiology in this. So let's end on a high note. What is coming that we might not know about? What good stuff is happening? Because we're always faced with news of pandemic and privacy issues and data misuse and all sorts of stuff. But there must be some good coming, and some patterns that you can see through your work that give us a bit more positivity. So can you give us something to look forward to?
Yeah, I think so. There's a couple of things. One is I think virtual environments, we're really going to see an explosion in. Not just from a creator space point of view, but also just allowing us to explore what it means to be human in a sense. So if you've seen the filming techniques out of The Mandalorian using Unreal Engine, I think that's going to really open up new filming, new programming techniques, but also allow people to explore how to actually build those virtual environments, especially for themselves. The tools are there to build them for themselves, and I think people can now start to look at learning them. We're living in really weird times right now, where we're actually in enclosed environments. People, 90% of people don't actually want to return to an office-based environment where they were before. And up to 60%, I read, of corporate headquarters might close because nobody wants to go back to them. So we now have to start thinking, what do I really want to do with my environment? How can I improve it? And can I do it virtually? So this is going to allow a lot of people and a lot of creators, massive amounts of scope to build things and for the better. And these environments had medical benefits as well. So people using virtual reality for pain relief rather than taking drugs, and it's been proven in a sense. So that's one thing. The other thing as well is that, I firmly believe that real innovation and change happens on the fringes that we don't see. So African and Asian and all those kind of sort of nations, sub-Saharan nations, where they're constrained by what they have access to, and it's literally like, I call it like the MacGyver effect. Remember MacGyver?
Yeah.
Right, where literally people are inventing things to solve a very real problem just using bits of tape and string and bits of wood and stuff like that. And I firmly believe that we have an opportunity to learn from these other nations who haven't got access to broadband, to data and stuff like that, and understand how we can actually improve our life to be more self-sufficient and capable again. So I'd like to see some positive things out of vertical farming, for example, as well.
Yep.
So there's lots of vertical farming startups, and rather than just go down the corporate route of just giving everything to Marks and Spencers or things like that, or Morrison's or whatever, showing my age by saying Safeways just then. They haven't been around for years.
Pop down to Woolworths after this.
But yeah, vertical farming would be a great way to give people the chance to learn how to grow vegetables and become, fruit and veg, and become self-sustaining. Because I firmly believe with climate change happening that we have to start learning to do things for ourselves again.
Yeah.
So there are some really exciting things, but I think we can learn, one, how to build better environments for ourselves on the virtual side, but two, what are the real practical innovations that are happening in countries that we're kind of ignoring because we all think it's Silicon Valley and London and Berlin. But other countries are doing some really wonderful stuff that could actually help first world countries in a sense.
That's nice. I like that. That is quite a happy note to end on. So I've really enjoyed this. It's been awesome. Now you've got a book coming out next year. It's time for the plug. So what's the book?
Plug.
What's the book and when's it out?
Yeah, so I have a book coming out called The Future Starts Now. It's being published by Bloomsbury. You can pre-order it now across Amazon, Barnes & Noble, lots of other sort of websites, physically from W.H. Smith and Waterstones as well. It's a collaboration between me, my other co-author, Bronwyn Williams, who's South African futurist, and around 20 other futurists and technologists who are literally dissecting various trends across business, society, and technology in general, and trying to paint that sort of picture in terms of where can we take this technology, where can we take our future, and what are the lessons that we need to learn to stop the bad stuff from happening. So it comes out in April.
Sounds like an ideal read. And if listeners want to follow you on social media, where are you? How do they find you?
Yeah, you can find my ramblings on Twitter. It's at TPRSTLY, or on LinkedIn. You'll find me. You'll find I have a profile there as well if you want to connect.
Perfect. Theo, thank you so much for your time. I've really enjoyed it.
Me too. Thanks for asking.
Thank you very much, Theo. If you want to follow him on Twitter,
Theo.
go to T Priestly on Twitter. He's a prolific tweeter.
Yeah, he is. Now, you say T. Priestly. I tagged T. Priestly in a tweet this week, and it was the wrong T. Priestly. So he's T. Priestly without the vowels, I think.
Oh, he's T. Priestly.
Yes. So be careful.
Right, we'll just search for Theo Priestly in that case and follow him, and do say hello and thank him if you've enjoyed his chat. It was a really enjoyable one, Theo, so thank you very much for your time. Now, next week, the doctor's in the house.
Oh.
Dr.
Hello.
Matthew Sweet.
Ah.
Not
Great.
Tom Baker.
No.
Matthew Sweet. And I had a really, really lovely chat with Matthew. Lots to look forward to in that one. He led us in on some secret, previously unreleased information about the times he chatted to Dad around the release of the Thunderbirds movie in 2004, which I thought was really fascinating.
I bet.
And just some of his insights about the shows and their sort of philosophical side, and about his observations of Dad himself, which actually taught me some new stuff, I think, which is really unusual to kind of feel like you've got some new insight into your own parent.
Yes.
So yeah,
Sure.
really, really good chat in 2 parts. So next week, Matthew Sweet part 1.
Great. I look forward to that. I mean, the quality of guests is astounding. When do you think we got this far? 20 something?
129 this one is. So we haven't had 129 guests.
I know, we must be close to 100 though.
Probably, yeah.
Oh.
Crazy,
Can you
isn't
imagine?
it?
We found 100 people that are actually happy to talk to us.
I'm not sure I could just find 100 people who are happy to talk to me individually, so there must be something either about you or the power of Gerry Anderson, or maybe it's Chris Dale.
Yes, don't know. Anyway, do you remember last time we met, Jamie? We were talking about my new nom de plume, Jackie James.
Oh, I've forgotten you were Jackie. Yes.
Yeah. Well, over on Twitter, Velocity Gallery said, I saw this after the Gerry Anderson podcast and I thought of you, and they tagged me in a picture of the Best of Jackie Annual.
Oh, perfect.
A lovely picture, which had articles including What Makes Us Go Pink, A Guide to a Holiday Romance, and Do You Have a Problem, Mum?
Wow. Sounds like a fascinating read, Jackie James.
Yeah, doesn't it? I know. Anyway, we've also been sent a few messages via our YouTube channel.
No way.
It's true. After the last FAB Facts, which detailed the addresses of various officers from Precinct 88 from Space Precinct, Brian Artillery said, well, it's Lettsby Avenue, isn't it? Why did none of them live at Lettsby Avenue? 999 Lettsby Avenue.
Yeah, well, isn't that is the address of, I want to say Yorkshire Police, maybe?
Get out.
Yeah, they had it built on a new industrial estate or something like that,
Right.
and so they named the road Lettsby Avenue. Someone will know that, but I'm sure it's Yorkshire or it's certainly
great.
one of the forces in the UK.
Yeah, and there's also a post from Peter JF who was answering Eric's question, I think last week or the week before, about concept art for old shows and whether it exists. And he says there was character concept artwork for Space Precinct or Space Police. In the 1980s, I worked at a graphics studio in Henley-on-Thames, and Gerry Anderson came in with early designs that he wanted photographed copies of. This was long before the show was on television. I do remember that there were some character designs that never made it to the series, like some feline-looking aliens.
Yes, Tom, Dick and Harry, I think they were.
Yeah. From the you can see them in the pilot. How interesting, Peter JF. So, it's fascinating, isn't it, that people, working in stationers and photocopiers back in the 70s, 80s and 90s might be the only people to have seen these initial designs, some of which may never have been used and will never be seen.
No. Probably long since gone, although some of them may have turned up in the Eubanks auction, funnily enough. So we'll have to see if anything makes its way out of there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Fascinating stuff.
Isn't it just?
Thanks for commenting, folks. Please do keep doing that.
Exactly. Always comment on our YouTube channel. We'd love to see what you think about the podcast and the various FAB Facts and the Randomiser and all sorts of things. Let us know.
Well, speaking of the Randomiser, Richard James, you know that's coming up next, don't you?
Is it?
Yeah. It's almost like you predicted it somehow.
God, isn't that weird?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably down to the
Maybe
format
I've got a
and script. I don't think it's a gift. The gift is I send you a script and you have now remembered the format after 128 pods. Anyway, let's hand over to Chris and Marina and see how they get on this week. Good luck, Chris and Marina.
Okay, Marina? Okay, Chris. Right, let's go. Hello everyone, and welcome to a slightly different introduction to this week's episode of the Randomiser. You see, it's Christmas coming up, and I would like to make our Christmas episode of the Randomiser slightly more interactive. You may remember, not last Christmas, but the Christmas before that, we had the Randomiser print off the names of 5 Gerry Anderson Christmas episodes, and we put them into crackers. And Marina and I pulled a cracker. We got the Thunderbirds episode, give or take 1 million. But we recently found that we still have the 4 crackers, so we've ripped them open. We have the names of 4 Christmas-related Gerry Anderson episodes, and we thought it might be rather nice to let you, yes you, decide which one we watch on the Christmas edition of the podcast. Now, by my incredibly complex calculations, I estimate that this episode of the podcast will drop on November 30th. So, if I've remembered, I have just started a thread on the Gerry Anderson Podcast Listeners Facebook page asking which episode you would like me to watch for our Christmas show. And the 4 candidates are Stingray, A Christmas to Remember, Joe 90, The Unorthodox Shepherd, Terrorhawks, A Christmas Miracle, and New Captain Scarlet, Enigma. So it's November 30th today. Let's say we'll run this for, let's say 2 weeks. We'll run it till Sunday, December 13th. So that's just about 2 weeks. Just leave the title of the episode you want me to watch in the comments and I will add up all the votes and see which episode is going to get reviewed on the Christmas edition of the podcast, which I think is going to be airing on the 21st of December. So that will be... well, that's 3 weeks away. Oh my god, it's only 3 weeks away. Ha! Also a message, if you're listening to this on the Gerry Anderson Randomiser podcast several years from now, please disregard everything I've said. You're too late to do anything. But if you're listening to this in the first half of December 2020, get on over to the Facebook listeners page and cast your vote. And Marina and I will see you next week. What's that? Oh, right, yeah, we have to do an episode this week. Right, what did the printout say? Oh, okay. Okay. Well, whatever. It's The Protectors and its trial. So, welcome back to The Protectors on the Randomiser, and as with a few months ago, I had a new microphone. That was a big first for the Randomiser. Today, this is the very first Randomiser I'm recording on a new chair.
How was the flight?
Very nice. I assembled it day before yesterday, and it hasn't fallen apart yet, so all's good. But all is not well in
Here for over an hour.
Harry Rule's pad.
Mrs. Anne Gordon. She didn't want to speak to anybody except you, so I haven't pressed her. Harry, she's been crying.
Oh, a crying lady sat on Harry's sofa. This is no good.
Hi, I'm Harry Rule. How are you?
He doesn't normally let ladies into his pad unless they're going into the bedroom, not to sit on the sofa crying.
Why don't you tell me what's wrong?
I don't even know why I came.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, for nearly 3 weeks now, you have listened with...
Flashback time. This is a flashback. We're now in court.
In my mind that the three accused, David Blair, Henry Franks, and John Stuart Gordon, are the three who made the savage and fatal attack on police officer Stangate.
I couldn't think of anything else to do, I suppose.
This is the mother of one of the boys who's on trial.
And now this.
One by one, their pleas and alibis have been shown to be false.
This is John Ringham as the prosecutor here, who was Tlatoxel in the Aztecs in Doctor Who. But there's someone with an even greater Doctor Who connection here.
Tiring case for all concerned. And I suspect that counsel for the defence will wish to address.
It's the Doctor himself, Richard Hurndall, who played the first Doctor in The Five Doctors.
The court will be upstanding.
Because the judge is having a heart attack. Oh dear.
Get his collar.
Well, that's a very stressful case for this judge.
Somebody get the doctor.
I am the doctor.
I love the zoom in on the boy who's on trial there, as if
I haven't seen him for 2 days.
he somehow caused the heart attack with his mind powers.
Please. Before he does something terrible.
So we're back from the opening credits. Trial. Written by another Doctor Who connection, Robert Banks Stewart, who wrote The Seeds of Doom and Terror of the Zygons. I believe this is his only Anderson script.
Hello, Judge Cronin.
Oh, hello.
So I expect something dark and gloomy, and hopefully with a giant monster loping around the place. Loping around here.
You sure you're quite warm enough?
Yes, thank you, I'm fine. Isn't it a lovely day?
I wonder if the weather forecasters ever confessed to misleading people.
Oh?
It was supposed to rain.
Oh, was it?
I enjoy our small talk banter. Yeah, Richard Hurndall is recovering in a care home. He's sat on a bench, but the father of the boy who's on trial, Joss Ackland...
I've got to speak to you.
Who are you?
My name's Gordon, Arthur Gordon. I'm John Gordon's father.
has let himself in.
Look, I must leave immediately.
You're
I
not
must
being
not
fair.
and will not speak.
That boy's only 18.
There is nothing you can say to me.
Understand.
Now, will you please leave me alone?
Oh, he's now shaking Hurndall, but luckily the gardener and the nurse are on hand to separate them.
Hey!
Oh, and Ackland's making a run for it. Yeah, we saw in court earlier, Ackland was looking...
Yes, well, I appreciate your confidence.
Well, let's say a little unhinged at the thought of his son being on trial. And that's what his wife was here to hire the protectors for, to find him. She doesn't know where he's gone.
Well, this is all the weeklies I could find. Tell me, what's the procedure in a case like this?
We improvise. We make it up as we go along. We've only got 20 minutes.
This was adjourned, which is not without precedent. By the end of the week, there'll either be a resumption or there'll be a retrial.
Oh, I see.
What concerns me more is the boy's father, Gordon. 20 days in court with tension building, and then the judge collapses. You can imagine his state of mind.
Would this also be, and I hate to say it, this may be another one of those Ireland situations where I open my mouth and say something silly. Is this the only Anderson episode with scenes in an actual court of law, like an actual courtroom? I know there are episodes like UFO Court Martial, but that's, I think as General Henderson says in that episode, that's not a court of law. Yeah, strange to see an actual legal court and a judge. Anyway, Paul's gone to check the offices.
Can I help you?
Of the father.
Yes, my name's Paul Boucher. I'm looking for Arthur Gordon.
Oh, he isn't here.
And he's getting nowhere with his secretary, played by...
He's been at the court.
I know who this is.
Well, his son killed a policeman.
Oh, it's Sally James, who later went on to Tiswas? It's a bit before my time. I want to say she was a host on Tiswas.
Clerk of the court.
So we've got a lot of famous faces and recognisable names this week.
Judge Cronin. I just want to apologise about this morning.
Perhaps dinner or... Oh, no.
Hello?
The judge has just hung up on him. Oh, no. A sudden sharp cut to Ackland sat in a pub looking absolutely shattered.
Like a light lager, please.
But Harry's found him. That didn't take long. Because when you hire the protectors, you get the best.
Mind if I sit down? You're, Arthur Gordon, aren't you?
You're a reporter.
No. My name is Rule. Harry Rule. Your wife asked me to find you.
And I believe this is one of the last episodes to be filmed. It's certainly the penultimate episode in the ITC official broadcast order. I'm looking at Robert Vaughan here, and he just looks so done. He just looks so fed up.
You're right, it was a mistake.
And I don't quite understand why he looks like this, because I've recently been watching The Man from U.N.C.L.E. third series. Yes, I know. To anyone who's familiar with that knows there's some absolute crimes against television in there. But even at its worst moments, he's still having an absolute blast. And yet just a couple of years between that and this...
One son.
He just looks so fed up.
I'm sorry.
Is he normal?
But this is a nice conversation.
Yes, I'd say he was.
Harry and Ackland bonding over the fact that they both have sons. It's another rare mention of the fact that Harry Rule has a son.
Well, just imagine he were 18.
Who now lives with his ex-wife, Hannah Gordon.
Starting off at university. Good business ready for him to take over. Business I started from nothing. And now he's on trial for murder.
I like this incidental music as well, which I think was composed for Borderline.
Judge is so twisted, so biased.
You're questioning the judge's impartiality.
Impartiality?
But he's Richard Handel.
You should have seen him at the trial. Needling away, poisoning the minds of the jury.
Your protocol, sir?
Oh, it means I have to get up and walk to the bar to get it. I'm not over-enthused with that idea, but I suppose I'll do it.
I'm going to give you some advice.
And this looks to be like a real pub, but it's also a very, very small pub.
To your wife. Go home and stay home.
You think you'll get a fair trial, eh?
It may just be the way it's shot, but it looks like there's only room for the one table that Ackland and Vaughan are sat at. Oh, Ackland's not in the mood for staying home. He's stormed out. Now, Harry could follow. On the other hand, he now has not one but two drinks he could finish, so he's going to stay at the pub. And Ackland goes back to his office. Yeah, going back to what I was saying about Vaughan a little while ago, I don't know what caused his change in mood. I know he wasn't happy during this. And he still seems quite professional. He does what he's asked to do. But there's just a spark in him that was there through U.N.C.L.E. And I don't think any shows really recaptured after that. Subsequent decades, everything I've seen him in, if he's not enjoying his work, you can see it in his eyes. And it looks to me like he very seldom enjoyed his work after U.N.C.L.E. The only time I think I've really seen that light come back into that warmth back in his face was in Hustle.
I hate to mention it, but this does happen to be my office.
So it's now night time.
Have some work. Take my mind off things.
I don't know why Harry's left it to night time to follow up on Ackland. Maybe he's been drinking all afternoon.
If you want, come along with me. I promised your wife I'd find you.
But I suppose with this episode, this is a slightly not serious, because a lot of the Protectors episodes are serious, but it's slightly more personal. The stakes are a bit more personal with this. It's just looking after one guy who's a bit unstable. Ackland has also taken out an apple from the desk and started eating it. His secretary, Sally James, was eating an apple earlier.
You go ahead. I'll look up.
I hope that's not one of hers, because he's only taken a bite out of it and left it on the desk. Oh, that's it. Never turn your back on anyone in this show. They will cosh you. And now what's he going to do? He's got a big red box. With... Oh, okay. What looks like a homemade bomb-making kit. Homemade bomb-making kit, that doesn't make sense either. Oh well, I've said it now. Detonators, cables, and a crowbar. Does not look promising. So it's time for more booze.
Well, there's no blood.
Ah.
Listen, why do you think Gordon tried to fix you?
Oh, I don't know. Guess he just wanted to get me out of the way for a while. What interests me more, though, is what he was doing in his office.
Yeah.
Ackland's now taken a room at a bedsit, with all the gear he needs to make a nice little bomb.
You have no idea where he is.
No.
That's what I hired you for. You messed it up.
Well, thanks for talking with us. We'll let you know if anything develops.
But you've got to do something. We're doing all we can.
Harry's been coshed on the head. Doesn't that count as enough?
Oh, I should have told you the first time I came to see you. 5 years ago, my husband had a breakdown.
Oh dear. And that's why he's now holed up in a hotel room with several sticks of dynamite and a slightly distant expression on his face. Now that's it. His bomb's all assembled. He's oh, I thought he was going to leave and do something with it, but he's just going to put it in the cupboard. Go for a walk. It's a nice day. Actually, it's not. It looks very cold.
It was when John, my husband, and he never seemed to be able to
finish a sentence.
They didn't really get on together, you see. My husband was working all hours, day and night. The business was going through a bad patch. And he was absolutely convinced that several other companies, rivals, you know, had ganged up on him.
And had they?
No. The psychiatrist called it a persecution complex brought about by stress. He just cracked with the worry of it all. Seeing him sitting in court day after day, I saw the same worried, tortured...
Same symptoms?
Yes.
Persecution complex.
I do like the slightly more...
The judge is the persecutor.
These later episodes of The Protectors, certainly towards the end of the second series... Oh, what's this? The trial's reopened, judges recovered, according to a newspaper stand there. Yeah, they feel a bit more grounded to these later episodes. You know, there's almost a sort of Sweeney-ish quality to some of these UK-based episodes, away from the glamour of all the European travel. This is something a bit different.
Determined to get Judge Cronin.
Which is why I really wish the show had had a third series. I would have liked to have seen if it would have developed into something a bit closer to that, or if it would have just continued to cling on to the sort of the globe-trotting Euro spy antics of the 60s. I'm not entirely sure, because with Tony Barwick as a script editor, he seemed a bit, mad, but also he seemed a bit, he seems quite aware of the idea that the show can't stay the same forever. It has to adapt and evolve. Anyway, Ackland has now got his homemade bomb planted in the back of a car boot. And the timing mechanism on this bomb is just about the biggest clock he could find. But it is now ticking. Oh, I think this might be the judge's car.
False alarms in our work, Mr. Rule.
Inspector, I don't think
Is that the nursing home?
Well, we'll see. The judge will be given police protection, of course. But I'm quite sure nothing will happen.
Well, let's hope so.
Oh, goodbye, overly confident police inspector who only has one scene. Ah, yes, this is the judge's car. It's arrived at the nursing home to collect him. And actually, it's rather a shame, although Joss Ackland is really good in this episode, it's a shame that Richard Hurndall doesn't get more to do here.
Necessary. Well, goodbye, sister.
Because I think a lot of cult TV fans just kind of... They only know him as the first Doctor in the Five Doctors, and kind of not dismiss him, but they think that's all he can sort of be, a knockoff version of something else. And
isn't an easy target.
He's actually done some really great work over the years.
He was in the army, but that doesn't mean anything.
But this episode just doesn't quite give him the chance to show that off, because he's actually not in it that much. Anyway, what's this new development?
Rule here.
Yes, Mrs. Gordon. Okay. Right. Bye. He just walked in his own front door.
Well, that's a relief.
I'm not so sure about that. I still don't understand why he was in his office.
Because what's his office? What is he in charge of? Is it a construction firm? Again, that's something I've waffled over.
Usual, sir.
Anyway, Ackland is now back in the pub, the world's smallest pub. Staring at the clock, it's 20 to 3 now. So I'm going to assume the bomb he's set is timed to go off on the hour. The judge is now being rushed to court with police protection. Police car in front, motorbike behind. No UFOs to take a shot at the motorbike riders this week, unfortunately.
He must have come for some reason.
The protectors are now searching his office. Oh.
There's a clock there on the wall. Now it's gone.
Look at this. Detonators.
You need explosives for demolition work.
What could it mean? Clever old Harry's put it all together.
Get me the radio room. Emergency.
Oh, that was the police inspector from earlier. Again, he's put the word out. Joss Ackland is just sat in the pub staring at this clock. There's only so many facial expressions you can use in a situation like that, and he is employing all of them because it's 2 minutes away from the hour. And the convoy has stopped. Oh.
Radio message, sir. There may be a bomb planted in your car.
1 minute to go.
I would have thought that rather unlikely.
My boy. That's it. Ackland is now downing his glass, celebrating a job well done.
Another? Oh, as usual, that's 7 minutes fast.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure if that's bad writing or very clever, but yeah, the clock in the pub was fast, so they had plenty of time to save Hurndall. The police have now found the bomb in the back of his car. And Hurndall looks very bemused.
There's obviously a serious case against you. If you accept that, and the fact that you need help, psychiatric treatment, things might be a lot easier.
Come on, Joss Ackland, do it. Do the right thing.
It was all for the boy.
I just wanted him to have a line of dialogue in this episode.
It is my duty to remind you that the onus of proof lies squarely on the shoulders of the prosecution. You may feel that the evidence presented against Blair and Franks satisfies you of their guilt. But in the case of John Stuart Gordon, you may prefer his version of what happened on that night in question.
So we're back in court. Ackland is in handcuffs, but Harry is there and his wife is there.
And as to his guilt, then it is your duty to find him not guilty.
The judge has laid down a slightly more lenient case for Ackland's son. We don't actually know the outcome of the trial, but the music is leading us to believe that it's going to be positive. All is going to be well for the Ackland family, and that was Trial, which I actually remembered being a bit better than I found it this time. A very nice guest performance from Joss Ackland. I wish we could have had more from Richard Herndl. Nice to have another slightly smaller scale UK-based story, but it was nothing spectacular. Not one of the greatest episodes of The Protectors, but still quite enjoyable.
Ba, 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 da, ba.
Oh, here it goes. Ba, 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 ba. Sorry.
What was that? Was that...
Well, that was...
Oh, that was Avenues and Alleyways, was it?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. I just, I
what do you mean, what was that?
Anyway, Protectors, Trial, nah.
Am wasted.
Not, what, this early in the day? Goodness me. So, Richard James, Protectors Trial, which Chris is all right. I mean, it's not bad. It's not the worst Protectors one, but it's still Protectors. But more excitingly, the power is in your hands, Podsterons.
Yes.
As Chris said, you now get to pick the Christmas episode that Chris will do on the Randomiser in what that will be, Pod 132, I think, the Christmas week one.
Yeah.
So if you want to vote for one of those 4 Christmas episodes that remain, then go to the podcast Facebook group, which is where, Richard James?
It's facebook.com/groups/Podsterons.
Nice. And you can go there, comment on Chris's thread, and vote for your choice, and Chris will do the one that is the winner. How exciting.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's great. And it can only be done via the Facebook group.
Yes, there is no other way to do it. No, don't email us, don't tweet us, don't send a carrier pigeon to Chris Dale. It won't count. It must be done via Facebook. Right, that probably is the end of Pod 129, I think.
Oh, yes, I think you're probably right.
What a relief. If you would do us a favour, give us an early Christmas present and go over to your podcast provider of choice and leave us a rating and a review, we would be ever so grateful.
Yes, we would.
We really, really would.
Oh, really grateful.
I mean, more than grateful. What's more than grateful?
I mean,
forever in your debt.
I mean, yeah, exactly. Yeah, beholden.
Yes, that's exactly what it would be.
We'd be beholden.
Yeah. So please go and do that. It would mean a great deal to us. And until Pod 130, which I believe will come on the 7th of December, I think we should go and have a little rest, Richard, don't you?
I definitely need to lie down in a darkened room.
That's what everyone says after they spend some time with me. Funny that, isn't it?
Yeah, funny that, yeah.
Okay. Anyway, bye.
Bye.
Stage 1 complete.
Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
Richard James.
Yes.
I know you're very tired.
I am.
But I thought you might like to hear a recent review on the podcast.
Oh, I love these. Yeah, go on.
So this is from Bugwort.
Right.
Or Bugwort. I think Bugwort. Bugwort. Yeah. That sounds nice, doesn't it?
Bugwort.
Anyway, it's a 5-star review.
Oh, thank goodness.
And Bugwort says, I came across the Gerry Anderson podcast accidentally with episode 125 and fell in love with it immediately.
God.
Oh, it's so nice. I subscribed to the podcast, downloaded all the prior episodes, and having a wonderful time listening to them all in order, up to pod 11 already.
Gosh.
Jamie Anderson and Richard James's easy camaraderie and witty banter keep me smiling throughout.
It's all an act. It's all an act.
Amazing. Yeah, there ain't no camaraderie here, mate.
No.
The weekly interviews are uniformly fascinating and entertaining, whether or not I know the person being interviewed. And the randomizer is an absolute highlight. Nice work, Chris Dale. Whether you're a dyed-in-the-wool Anderson fan and a fan, or just have a vague memory of watching the odd episode or two of the shows in your childhood, give this podcast a try. I promise you won't be disappointed.
Oh, isn't that nice?
Isn't that amazing? So, Bugwort, if you're listening to this bit, or Bugwort, or how am I supposed to say it? Thank you so much.
Bugwort.
That's Bugwort. Yeah, lovely. Très international. But no, that doesn't. Isn't that nice? That means a lot to
Yes.
us, doesn't it, to have stuff like that?
But I love it that people are still accidentally stumbling over us.
Yes, and you don't have to lie down in the street for that to happen anymore.
That's right. That's right.
So there you go.
No,
Well,
that's very nice.
That takes us 250 ratings with an average 5 out of 5. Can't say better than that, can you? So thank
fantastic.
you everybody who's rated and reviewed us.
But
What?
your task for next week, Jamie, is
My
to find
tarts?
Your task. Your task.
Yes.
For next week.
Yes.
Is to find our worst review. And read that to me.
I think I probably can do that. I'm not going to do it now, but
for next week.
Yeah, it's been a little while since we had a 1-star, but there are a couple in there, so I'll find some and
look forward to it.
Oh, I can't wait! Right, go and rest on your laurels. Then I think I might go and rest on mine for a bit. Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
You have been listening to the Gerry Anderson Podcast. Wasn't it fun?
You have been listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.